Welcome again to Evangelizing Eastern Orthodoxy, where our goal is to understand Orthodox doctrine and worldview in order to communicate the gospel to our friends. My name is John Diacos, and we're here with part two of our chat with Panagiotis Kantartzis, who is the pastor of the First Greek Evangelical Church in Athens. He's also written an excellent book for those who wish to know more about Eastern Orthodoxy entitled A Christian's Pocket Guide to Eastern Orthodox Theology. Well, I think we need to move on because I did want to talk to you about the Orthodox way of salvation as well, to try and clarify that for people as well. So, within Eastern Orthodoxy, what is the way to be saved? Which again may be the wrong way to ask that kind of question, mightn't it? What
Yeah,
does salvation look like in Orthodoxy?
yeah. I think that is a good question, emphasizing the word way.
Yes.
That for the Orthodox, it's not like it's a way, it's a journey.
Yes.
So that is what it's all about. Which, of course, I mean, everything you see is connected. If the way to know God is through this mystical union, then and if salvation at the end, like even so the final goal is not to understand but to be united with God, which is basically salvation, which is deification.
Mm.
So how do you get there? I think it is important to um, think about like when we talk about salvation as Protestants, we tend to start with the fall, with the problem,
Hmm.
which makes sense, is logical.
Mm, mm.
Okay, there is a problem that had to be solved, and okay, here is the way that God solved the problem, and okay, now this is what you're supposed to do. For the Orthodox, I think they go a step back, and in order to understand the notion of salvation, you need to go back to the creation. What are we created for?
Mm.
And what exactly creation means? For us, so to say, the process of salvation starts. So there is like Donald Fairbairn, a very important theologian who has really engaged with Eastern Orthodoxy. He has written a book. Like the book I was referring to, Larry Hurtado, was the Destroyer of the Gods,
Ah, very
Destroyer of
good.
the Gods. Now, Donald Fairbairn, let me tell you the title of his book
Is it
because it's, well, Eastern Orthodoxy through
Through
Western
Western
eyes.
eyes? That's right.
And of course, the other important books by Bob Letham, Through Western Eyes, which is kind of Eastern Orthodoxy. So it's kind of, he reversed the word. Um, so Donald Fairbairn says that there is the two stages or three stages understanding. So us Protestants have three stages. So it's creation, first stage, fall, and then redemption. For the Orthodox, it's two stages, is creation, deification. So let's go back to understand the Eastern Orthodox. I mean, someplace there is the fall, but we'll talk about that.
Mm.
So creation is dynamic, meaning that we are created in order to. Of course, even as Protestants, we believe that God gave the cultural mandate, as we call it, but when we think, okay, what is our calling? For us is to cultivate the earth, to multiply, and all these things that we read in the scripts. For the Orthodox, because they make this distinction, which scripturally and hermeneutically cannot be sustained, but it's patristic, so it's there that there is the image and likeness. So we have been created according to God's image, which is kind of the apex, if we can call it like this. So this is what is given, you know, and then likeness, it's our destiny. Likeness is our calling. So we are created in order to become like God, in order to become God-like, in order to be deified, divinized. Okay, so creation is not static. We have been created in order to become something.
Mm.
So there is a process of becoming. Okay, so the idea of becoming is very important. I mean, it's kind of an ongoing, again, apax and malon, okay? There is an apax element, so there is the image, but definitely there is this ongoing, the forever thing, which is kind of a process. Now, of course, as I said, the way they base that is on this like artificial distinction between image and likeness. I mean, most people who studied Old Testament, they know these are interchangeable terms. Like they may have different emphasis, definitely. That's why there are two different words, Chelek and Demuth. But at the same time, they have been used interchangeably. So it's not like that means one thing, the other means necessarily a totally different thing. But that's another story. But you see, Orthodox don't care about those kinds of arguments, okay? Because this is what has been delivered, and this is the way that we understand things. So when we talk about now, of course, we may discuss about what does exactly that mean. So God created us as one thing in order to become another thing. So here you see the idea of being a creature is by definition problematic. You have to overcome, to transcend your creatureliness, because creatureliness means limitation, right? So being godlike means freedom. So freedom, keep in mind, it's a very, like there is this famous Greek theologian, John Zizioulas, which is perhaps the most talking about influencers in Instagram. He's not, but in theology, totally, he's a great influencer, like perhaps the most, important theologian of our modern era, Orthodox theologian, who has been really influenced. He has influenced many theologians across the spectrum. So Zizioulas freedom is the key element of what it means to be according to God's image, because God is freedom. Okay. So listen to that. He has a little book about humans as priests of creation. So when Adam defies God, he acts as a free agent. So in a strange way, he's not negating his being an image bearer. He actually applies that.
Yes.
Because if to be God is to be free. So, but of course, this is kind of a little bit strange. But let's keep the main idea. So we have become, God has created us as creatures in order, through a process of becoming deified. So that is the goal. The goal is to unite the human and the divine, in a final union, which is deification. So that is a process. What is fall? Fall is not falling down from a position, so it's not I'm here and I fall down, so I need someone to come and rescue me. Fall is the stopping, so to say, this process, neglect. I mean, even Karl Barth, in his analysis of the fall, he used the word sloth. Is being slothful, is just to not to actualize your potential or whatever you may call it. So that's the problem, okay, in a way. And so that we'll talk about, the fall and what Christ did and all of that. But salvation then is to get back on track in a way. Okay. So through a process that, we started the process, we stopped, and, now we need to get back on track to continue this process. All right. And the end of this process is deification. Now, when I ask you, are you saved? There is this interesting book by Kallistos Ware, How Are We Saved? And he talks about being on a train. Imagine a bishop with beard and all these, things. And, two young people, like probably from Campus Crusade or something, approached him and said, are you saved? And he said, well, what exactly do you mean? And how can I answer? So he has written a book saying, actually, the only thing, the best thing I can say is that I am being saved. Because if salvation is deification, if I ask you, are you deified? I mean, we can say I'm
Mm.
deified. Says I'll try. I hope. I'm
Yes.
in a process. So everything is a process. Now, of
Yes.
course, there are many other things that we can say, and we probably will come to that. But this is the Ordo Salutis. So it's kind of we have been created to be united with God. We have something stopped this process, and now we have hindrances. God had to take them away so that again we can start this process again, not as Adam and Eve in the garden, but now as the church within the context, the ark of the church and the sacraments and all of that, in order to go to that journey. And in a way, the church is the ark. So the idea, as long as I am in the church, then I'm moving on, hoping that one day I'll go there. But even if I didn't do that well, don't worry, because you have like it's really telling to go to a funeral in the Orthodox tradition. Like the whole thing is a prayer to God, which basically says, God, you know,
Have
we're all
mercy.
just you are merciful,
Mm.
you are full of, goodness. Accept him, accept her. And
Mm.
then, of course, you have the mnemosina, the memorials, and all of that. So there is always, so that is, so to say, kind of the idea of salvation.
There are 220 million people of Eastern Orthodox background across the world. They are our neighbours, our accountants and healthcare workers, and the parents of our children's friends. Yet many of us know little about Eastern Orthodoxy. Evangelising Eastern Orthodoxy is a free training course which equips you to understand Orthodox worldview and doctrines to help you effectively communicate the gospel. Each of the 8 modules features short video introductions explaining Orthodoxy, accompanied by practical evangelistic exercises. These are designed to be run in small groups at church or at home. Whether you're leading a church, facilitating a small group, or simply want to be a better friend or family member, this course is designed for you. The whole course, videos and printable studies are available free at eeo.net.au.
So many times when we go to evangelize or to as I prefer to say, to offer gospel witness to our Orthodox friends, I don't know how much of like if in their ears what the gospel is really good news, because we need to say, no, no, no. It's like being you're a doctor. This like somebody thinks that I just have a flu or just a cold, and you say, no, no, no. You have something way much more serious, life-threatening and stuff. I'm not sure most people they may react and say, what are you talking about? I will go to the other doctor that says, just take some, you know,
Well,
painkillers. Fine.
yes. That's true. And look, as a doctor, I'll tell you, it's and so I know of someone close to me who doesn't want to go and see doctors because you'll hear bad news. But
Yeah,
if you don't hear the bad news, then you can't get the cure.
you're
That's
totally right.
that's the
You're
issue.
totally right.
Yeah.
And there are bad news.
Mm.
And I always say, I was once invited, there is a conference going on in Greece in every year where academics and philosophers, theologians, they get together, and we, the person who organizes that is kind enough to invite also Protestant, pastors, theologians to participate in that. So they asked me to talk about the doctrine of original sin and our
Mm.
understanding. And to begin with, it's interesting. And of course, many times you grow up in an environment is like the water, what like for the fish, what is water, right? Because so I lately realized that in Greek, we don't use the term original sin, but we use the term ancestral sin. Το προπατορικό αμάρτημα. Προπατορικό, not το αρχαίγωνο, like the original. There are two different words. Προπατορικό is ancestral. So it's
Right.
their sin that definitely affects me, but
Right.
it's not like I participate in that. So and like talking about that, there was this question that I think is a key question. Let me put it like this: you're a doctor. If you see the cure that is prescribed, you can understand better what is the illness, what is the problem. So, for
Yes.
example, the only thing you know is that this guy had to have a like heavy operation, 7 hours,
Hmm.
and then he had to have like how many rounds of chemo and stuff. And you say that, then when you see that and you ask, okay, what exactly do you think? Like if I come and say, you know what, he had like a cold, you say, are you kidding me? I mean, that thing does not explain that. So a key question is when you read the narratives of the cross, Jesus Christ came, and the scriptural witness is obvious. He came to die. He came to die, and to die in a very particular way. He didn't die of heart attack or something. He died being a court decided for him to die in the place of a criminal. So there is all this forensic atmosphere around it. So that's why we talk about that he took the punishment or the curse of the covenant, which is what? What is the curse of the covenant? I mean, go back to Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26 is punishments. It's not the curse that, I don't know, like it's punishment. So he took on him the punishment of our sin.
Mm.
So that means that our problem is way much more serious than our Orthodox friends. They want to understand it. That, it's okay, a hiccup in our way, and somehow Christ came. And we're going here and there, but let me say that if now what I'm saying is that is not something that all Orthodox theologians will claim. Definitely, for example, the fathers, all of them don't agree with that, but this is quite popular among many modern Orthodox theologians. If the end of the process was the union of the human and the divine, what does that remind you? The incarnation.
Yes.
So this is the unconditional incarnation, that Christ would have been incarnate, no matter, I mean, so it is not the response to our fallenness, but it was supposed to be the culmination of our process of salvation. But now, instead of having it at the end, so this is God offers us what we're supposed to accomplish by ourselves to unite the divine. So he says, okay, I'll come and do it. So now Christ gives us his benefits. And again, where do we get them? In the church through the sacraments.
Yeah.
So I would say that the key, like we may differ in many things with our Orthodox brothers and sisters and friends, but the key obstacle is ecclesiology. As Protestants, we have a very generous ecclesiology because we don't identify the body of Christ with a visible expression of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may sound Platonic, but it's useful, like the invisible. And of course, that comes out of our history as Protestants, because like going back to Luther's time, there was just one church. And of course, it's very easy to maintain one church, killing whoever disagrees with you, because many people say, you know what, like it's the Protestants. Of course, there were many people who thought differently, but they were burned as heretics. And so you maintain being one church, same. So, and all of a sudden there is something else. So, okay, what is it? Who are we? So
Mm.
we have this kind of more generous ecclesiology, but for the Orthodox, salvation cannot happen. Like even if they want to be generous with us, I mean that is worth pondering. And I know that I have many Orthodox friends who are very kind people, and they'll say, you're my brother. We love God together. You're my brother. But if they are consistent with their theology,
Mm.
since I don't participate in the sacraments, I was not baptized as Orthodox. I don't take communion, Eucharist. I don't receive Christ. I don't go to confession. I don't participate in the sacramental life. So if you go by the book, I cannot be saved. And so this is really problematic. And that is kind of an obstacle to any kind of discussion we may have that somehow we need to account for that. But that was not your question, but I
we
will
got
let you lead.
Certainty for Life, an invitation to Eastern Orthodoxy, is a compelling exploration of faith, assurance, and the search for peace with God, written especially for those from an Eastern Orthodox background. Drawing on personal stories, biblical teaching, and the wisdom of early church fathers, the book addresses the deep longing for certainty that many experience in their spiritual lives. In Australian Presbyterian, Mark Powell writes, "Certainty for Life is a book which I hope will, by the grace of God, make a profound and far-reaching impact. It is a book to buy, read, and then give prayerfully away. Certainty for Life comes highly recommended." Certainty for Life is available in print, ebook, and audiobook at certaintyforlife.com.
No, we headed in the right direction. What I wanted to pick up, though, was what you mentioned just before, because it's one of the questions that you suggest we ask our Orthodox friends in your book, and that is, why did Jesus die? And more particularly, why was he crucified? And
Yes.
I think that is a very challenging question. It's a helpful one because, again, it's one of those starting points. Unlike the secular West, where you have to go to the beginning and say, well, Jesus was a man who lived, and yes, he did die, he existed, and for Orthodox people in general, they will accept, yeah, of course, well, this is what we do at Easter. Of course, Jesus died and rose again. So let's start with that. But why? Why was it necessary? What was it that was so bad that required this cure, as you put it?
Yeah. It's not only how bad it was, but what was the nature of the problem as well.
Yes.
Because for the Orthodox, and of course we need to elaborate, and we don't have the time, the consequence of the fall is mortality.
Yes.
Is the primary thing. Of course, even mortality for most Orthodox is not a punishment. Is the natural result, the natural consequence. So if you are away from the source of life, you die. That is, there is a very particular problem with this idea if we don't see it as a God kind of inflicted punishment. Because you see, it's very important for them to maintain God as a philanthropist, as God does not have to do anything with wrath, with anger, with punishment, and all of that. So, in a way, to protect God from that kind of notion. But I think even if if there is a natural law that if you are away from the life, you die, who established that law? Who is the lawmaker? God is. So perhaps, you cannot escape. But if we go that way, there is a very particular problem, and that is the devil. Why the devil is still alive? If it is simply the natural consequence of being away. I mean, the devil and the demons, they went away, but they're still well and alive. Of course, they're not eternal, but they didn't die. They're not dying. They're not dead. So there is a logical, and there are some Orthodox theologians, they accept that there is a problem in that idea. So, I mean, we cannot avoid even reading the book of Genesis. I mean, it's a courtroom scene that God calls Adam and Eve, and he pronounces his judgment. So, so what is the problem? Is mortality, or is guilt that causes mortality? If it's only mortality, then any type of death, if Christ was to take our mortality to defeat it, I mean, I would say that I don't know, you're a doctor, what was the most common cause of death at that era? I would say, okay, let's take the most common cause of death, because mortality is the issue, and identify and die of cancer, die of, heart attack, die of, whatever it was. And so say, okay, you know what? I identified, I came here to defeat mortality and die in a hospital or whatever, as most people died. I mean, there were no hospitals, but anyhow, you get my point. Okay.
Mm.
But why Christ? So not only why did he die in this brutal way with all this blood and all this stuff, but why with that particular, which is the emblematic penal way for someone to die at that time and era. Okay,
Mm.
why that? Why is that? And I would say that that necessarily points to the idea of guilt that or punishment that had to be taken upon. So that is, I would say, of course, we can definitely elaborate that Christ died for us and in our place, not only for us, but also in our place.
Mm.
So he, as Tim Keller used to say in his sermons, that he died the death that we were supposed to experience in order to give us the life, his life that we didn't, so there is this kind of exchange. So
Yes.
this is the substitution. There is this exchange which Athanasius on the Incarnation, he talks about that. Ανταλλαγή, he calls it, like this, I mean, substitution. So he's not going all the way to talk about penal substitution in that sense, which frankly, I don't care about terminology as long as the structure is there and the understanding is there that Christ died in our place, like 2 Corinthians 5, he became sin so that we can become the righteousness of God. So that is so
Mm.
important there. And why it's important? And here I'll tell you why I like your book.
Mhm.
Because this is not just a theological topic. It has immense practical applications. I mean, the idea of substitution, the idea of justification, the idea of the apax once and for all is so important because it gives us certainty for life. That's the title of the book, of your book, right?
Yes.
And that I think is really a key element, which
Mm.
is it's not now kind of a theoretical, okay, let's debate about these things. It has immense practical application as how you live your Christian life. Do you live your Christian life always in some sort of fear? Like my favorite story, and when I mean, here is the gospel. Okay, here is the parable of the prodigal son. I mean,
Mm.
that is the way I would say the gospel to any friend here in Greece, any Orthodox friend. Here is the gospel, and here's what they're missing if they don't, what they affirm and what they leave out, right?
Mm.
So I mean, we all understand, especially Greeks, betrayal, like if your
Yes.
son says, like this is, so it's not necessarily a legal problem, okay? So I'm not saying this is the only metaphor or the central metaphor. Like here is betrayal, okay? So an exile, so he leaves the house, he betrays the father, he dishonors the father, so all these aspects are there. So he goes to be with the pigs and all of that, and he comes to his senses, and he thinks, and here is the gospel of religion. If I go back, at least I can work so that I can have rewards and eat
Mm.
food.
Mm.
This is religion.
Mm.
I'll go back and I have a transaction. I'll do this for you and you'll do this for me. Okay. And that's fair. And that is all he can think. So he walks back. And of course, we read that the father runs to him. And here is the thing. Imagine if the father said to him, you failed being what you were what you were destined to be an obedient son.
Mm.
But I will give you one more opportunity. For the Orthodox, the gospel is, I will give you one more opportunity. A better opportunity. Now you have been wise, more mature, like, okay, I'll give you the sacraments, I'll give you more help. You have the context of the church, blah, 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 but I'll give you more opportunity. So you will work and we will see.
Mm.
We'll see how it goes. Let's start the process, okay?
Mm.
Handshake, but you don't have a handshake. You have a kiss.
Mm.
And many times I say the kiss of the Father is what we mean when we say about justification by faith, is the apax. The father at that moment, he says, I accept you as a son. You're not in a probation to see how you go, and you're not in a process. You are a son, period. You know, I will dress you the former clothes. I will give you, we'll have the whatever they ate. I will give you your place at the table, and I will give you the ring, which is the credit card.
Mm.
Like of that time is because this is how you seal. You're my son. Period. And that is a very different psychology. Like, of course, you have the older brother who knows about it. I'm here to serve you, and you didn't, But I mean, but let's forget the older brother and think about the two options. And what is gospel after all? One option is okay. I'll, give you an opportunity with baptism. Okay, you're again back on track now. You have, of course, Christ accomplish what you were supposed to accomplish, which is the unification of the human divine. And so you can eat Christ in communion, you can get grace and stuff, and, just participate in the sacraments, and, we'll see. So you talk to the bishop, Callistos, and the best thing he can say is that I hope.
Yes.
I'm being saved, and he has this other expression that you live with this kind of fear till the time of your death, and
Mm.
so this is psychology. On the other hand, you have the son who has been embraced and kissed by the father, and everything changes. So
Mm.
this is the gospel. This is the certainty for life, and this is what I think is very important for us. Is not that we're going to promote Protestantism.
No.
I don't care about that. It's not to prove that we're right, you're wrong, but it's like many times I say, like these poor monks that they pray, we say the Kyrie eleison. We have this expression in Greece, το πολύ το Kyrie eleison, το βαριέται και ο παπάς, right? Because there are liturgies that you say Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, that even the priest gets tired of it and gets bored. So this is the expression. So imagine if the only thing that Jesus prayed is that, Lord Jesus, have mercy on me, the sinner. If that is the only thing you say, that I'm a sinner, have mercy, I'm a sinner, have mercy, I'm a sinner, when is the time that we will say with Paul, but I have been accepted.
Mm.
I have
Hmm.
been given mercy. I'm a son, I'm a
Mm.
daughter. I'm celebrating that. That is the good news of the gospel. And that is, I think, what we are missing if we confuse the apax with the malon. If of course we all agree that, I mean, I was reading a novel actually, who said, I wish I was there the next morning.
Mm.
But I mean, of course, the prodigal son, when he became again the restored son, like next morning, I'll tell you my version. He woke up before anybody else woke up to prepare breakfast for everybody. Just say, Dad, I'm here. What do you want me to do? And
Out
then
of
he said,
gratitude, yes.
get some rest, and says, no, 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 no. I'll, tell me what, of course, it never ends, but it's so essential. So that is what they're missing when you don't have this
Mm.
penal aspect, which leads you to justification. If the only thing is mortality, so you give life, so now you go and live and see how it goes. But if there is no this declaration that you are justified, and you are my son, you are my daughter, now you belong to me, that it's gone, the debt is gone. That gives you this freedom. The freedom of a Christian is Luther, this little book, that because this is, and it has to do a lot with the psychology and the motivation why, like Luther in that little book, written very early on in his career, 1521, he says that, okay, if you do good to your neighbor in order to gain favor before God, you don't do it for himself, for them, you do it for yourself.
Yes.
So true morality presupposes freedom. I'm already accepted. I don't have to do it,
Mm.
but I'm doing it out of
Mm.
love. And you see, this understanding of justification has so many your personal psychology certainty, but also for your way of living in this earth. I mean, why you do good, why you should be a responsible citizen? Why? I mean, is it because you are, it's out of freedom, and that gives this positive ethical aspect to whatever we do, and it's a totally different basis for ethics in life.
Mm. Yes, well, you explained very clearly that the desperate need that everyone has of the gospel, and including our Orthodox friends, and how that in comprehending or in embracing the gospel, embracing the grace of God, that's the key to living an abundant life as well. Look, thank you very much for your time today. I think we have come to the end of our time. I'll just add in and tell people about the excellent initiative that you have started called the Evangelical Center for the Study of Orthodox Christianity, which people can find at ecsoc.org, exsoc.org, ecsoc.org, where there are regular webinars with presentations from both evangelical and Orthodox scholars, which really help Christians understand the nature of Orthodoxy. And that will be helpful for people to look up and find out more. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
John.
I trust it's certainly been enlightening for me, and I trust it's been enlightening for everyone who's listened. Thank you.
It was great. I really enjoyed it, and I am available any other time to continue the conversation.
Oh, wonderful. Lovely. All right. Well, I'll definitely take you up on that. All right. Thank you. And Kalimera.
Kalimera, dude.
Thanks for listening to Evangelizing Eastern Orthodoxy. Continue to pray for your Orthodox neighbors and friends, and seek to emulate Paul, who declared to the Corinthians, "We plead on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. He made the one who did not know sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God."
My hope